What's up, my stats sergeants? Let's talk about a problem that typically comes up either on multiple choice or the FRQ of the AP Stats exam that deals with confidence intervals. A question would say something like this: what does 98% confident even mean? Or it could be 95 or 99, whatever percentage is in the problem. But a lot of kids mess this up. So let's talk about what it doesn't mean. It's not a probability. Some kids will say, oh, there's a 98% chance that the population parameter is in my interval, or it's not. No. It's nothing about probability. Or some kids will say 98% of the time it's in the interval. No, it has absolutely nothing to do with time. It's all about samples. Remember, that confidence interval was built based on the idea of a sampling distribution. So let's just do a quick example so we can actually process what this means in a particular problem. So Principal Klein is growing more and more concerned about the students at his school that are overwhelmed with anxiety. So he wishes to estimate the proportion of all students at his large high school that experience anxiety daily. He selected a random sample of 125 students, and from his school, or from his sample, 32% said they experience anxiety on a daily basis. Now, following all the steps, he constructed a 98% confidence interval to be anywhere from 22.3% to 41.7%. So the interpretation of his interval is that he's 98% confident the true proportion of kids that experience anxiety is somewhere between 22.3% and 41.7%. Okay, great. But that's the interpretation of the interval. That's not answering what a 98% confident even means. So here's the idea. Principal Klein used one sample, just one, and he's thinking about that sampling distribution filled with sample proportions. Now, what he knows is that 98% of all sample proportions are in the middle, close to the truth. Hence, when we wrap the interval around them, we will capture the truth. So the 98% confidence is not a probability, it's not about time, it's all about samples. 98% of all possible samples of 125 students selected from Principal Klein's school will produce a sample proportion that's close to the truth. And we could use that sample proportion to create an interval, which means there's tons and tons and tons of possible intervals because every sample proportion from every different possible sample creates its own interval. 98% of those intervals will contain the true population proportion of all students at his school that experience anxiety on a daily basis. All right, now sometimes in a multiple choice, they'll try to trick you and they'll say 98% of all possible intervals will contain the sample proportion. No, the sample proportion is guaranteed to be in your interval. In fact, it's the dead center of your interval, so don't choose that one by mistake. Remember, the interval is trying to capture the true population proportion. So again, what does 98% confident mean? It means of all possible samples. Every sample is going to create its own interval. And 98% of all possible intervals are going to contain the true population parameter, whatever it is. In this case, it's the proportion of kids at Mr. Klein's school that have daily anxiety. Don't use the numbers from your interval to answer the question because your interval is just one of many intervals. The idea of 98% confident is that there's tons of intervals. Ours is just one of them, and we're confident ours is one of those middle 98%. But the idea is that there's tons and tons of intervals. 98% of all those intervals should capture the population proportion within it. All right, that's it. Hopefully it makes sense, and be ready for that question on the AP exam.